people of the internet, and welcome back to Briar Rose Updated. This is a series in which I am attempting to update this outfit here from the Disney film Sleeping Beauty. In the first video of the series, which I will link here now, I did some overall project planning, so I recommend that you watch that first so you have some context for what's going on here. Then in the second video of the series, which I will also link up here, I created two 1950s petticoats. Both videos will also be linked down below. In this third part of the series, I'm going to make a 1950s circle skirt in wool for next year, I guess, because I'm late, okay? I run out of time. Work has been messy and I've been unmotivated. Never mind, I don't care, it's spring, I'm making my woolen skirt because I say so. It's happening. It's happening. Unlike in my previous attempt at a circle skirt, where I use a pattern for its entirety, this time I plan on drafting this skirt portion of the project myself, and I will use the same pattern that I used last time for the waistband and the pockets. This is the pattern I'm talking about. Last time I did this version of the skirt. This time I'm going to use the other waistband, which is wavy. I don't know, I think it's fun. Yeah, so that's the plan. Fabric. If you follow me on Instagram, you recognize this one. I bought it at the same time as the red fabric for my cloak. If you haven't watched my cloak video yet, I link it up here. It's the most epic garment I've ever had in my entire life. That's all I have to say. Anyway, wool. Isn't it beautiful? Oh my god, I love it so much. I'm so glad I'm finally making something with you. It's lovely. I'm not sure if you can tell just how lovely it is, but it's so lovely. Also, it was outrageously expensive, so it's a bit scary to work with, but we've been there before and it was fine, so it's going to be fine. I also have some fusible interfacing for the waistband because I'm not falling into that mistake again. Not happening. A zip for the closure. What's wrong with you people? And silk thread from Gutermann, also in brown. The skirt also has a couple of hooks and eyes, but I don't have them with me right now, so I'm not going to show you. You know what a hook and eye looks like. Yeah, easy peasy, very simple. Should be done in like a few hours. Yeah, you know how it goes. Okay, so in the spirit of not making the same mistakes as last time, that project was messy, I'm going to mock up the waistband. I think the size should be fine after all the trials and tribulations the last time, but just in case, I'm mocking it up. Okay, I think we're good. The side seams are hitting in the right places. I think the sizing is fine, which is the important thing. I don't think I need to touch this, so that's great. Let's get to drafting. This skirt has 3 panels. The front is one single panel in the shape of a semicircle, and the back consists of 2/4 of a circle panels to account for the center back zip. Here you can see me drafting all of that directly onto the fabric and cutting all the pieces. Okay, all my pieces are cut. That took a while. Now I am going to attempt something that might be crazy and might be a bad idea, but I'm doing it anyway. I'm going to try to sew the side seams and the pockets with French seams. This might not be the best idea with a chunky fabric like wool. We'll see. I will attempt to explain the process, but it's kind of complicated. Hopefully we'll be fine. First, I'm sewing one pocket piece to one skirt panel with wrong sides together and 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance out of 5/8 of an inch in total. I'm clipping the seam allowance at the beginning of the seam to be able to flip the pieces right sides together, and I'm trimming the seam allowance to half the length. I'm pressing the seam so that it sits as nicely as possible with the pieces right sides together. Next, I'm sewing them again with 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance. I'm pressing the finished seam to one side to flatten it, and then repeating the whole process with the second pocket piece, attaching it to the corresponding side seam. The front and back pieces, now with the pockets attached, are lined up with wrong sides together and pinned. I made sure that the pattern matched as I did this. The two pieces are sewn all around the edge with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. As with the pockets earlier, the seam allowance is clipped and trimmed. Then the pieces are flipped to right sides together, pressed and sewed again with 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Hi, I'm back. I know I sound a bit rough and I'm feeling a bit scattered. That's because I went out yesterday. It was my friend's birthday. I'm old and I don't know how to party anymore. Yeah, okay, never mind. We're going to do some sewing today. Let me show you where I'm at this point. Here is my skirt. I still have one of the back panels with only the pocket attached, so that's the next step. I've attached the other back panel to the front panel, so you see there's a pocket. And the first thing you are going to see immediately after this section is what I'm going to do with the back seam and the zip situation. First, I'm pinning the two back panels together. I'm drawing a line 7 inches from the top, which is where the zip opening will end. I'm sewing the back panels together from the line down and basting them from the line up, using 5/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Hopefully you can see that the stitches to the left of the line are longer than those to the right. This seam is pressed open and the zip is pinned over it, making sure it's right on top of the seam. Next, it is basted. The stitch lines are drawn 1/4 of an inch away from the seam. I tried to sew this by machine, but it's a new day! If you're wondering why I'm wearing the same top, it's because this happens to be my current pyjamas. And you know that thing that people did during the pandemic of working in their pyjamas? Well, I'm a translator, so that's my life. Moving on then. As it turns out, I ended up ripping the zip apart and redoing it by hand because I hated it. And of course, I didn't film any of that because I was frustrated and couldn't be bothered. But here, my friends, for your enjoyment is a reenactment. I'm redoing it by hand. This is the final zip. Looking good. Yeah, it works perfect. And also, since I was already in the hand sewing train, I figured I would also finish up the seams on the inside. I've basically just used a whip stitch to attach them to the base fabric. The next step is the waistband. But before we continue, I'm going to show you how I fixed the waistband in my previous attempt at the 1950s skirt. As I probably mentioned at some point in this video, that skirt was a bit of a mess. And while I was working on my previous project, I had the urgent need to fix it. Hello from the not so distant past. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you might remember this skirt. It was one of my first sewing projects, and it was my first time following a pattern, which is where I sadly learned that they were not to be trusted. This project was a struggle. If you want to see me suffer and get a bit more context for this thing and why it is messy, you can go and check that video out in the link I will put here and also down below. First, the skirt was too small, then the skirt was too big. As you can see, I took part of the skirt and just folded it and tried to sew it, and you know, it's messy and ugly and I hate it, and I'm going to fix it. So the idea is to just remove this waistband and replace it with a new one of the right length, and also add some interface into it because this is very flimsy. My idea for this is to take the waistband pattern piece from the petticoat I just made in my previous video, I will link that one up here as well, and adapt it to reflect more the shape that this waistband has. And then we'll recut it, interface it, and hopefully sew it again and have a new old skirt that actually works. It's time to start pulling the skirt apart and removing the waistband, and I'm terrified because I don't know the state of the seam allowance inside. This fabric frays so much. First, I'm sewing the 3 pieces of the inner side of the waistband. And the 3 pieces of the outer side. Next, I'm trimming the seam allowances. With right sides together, I'm creating an inverted box pleat on the center front of the skirt. I'm pinning it in place to the center front of the outer side of the waistband. Then I'm creating mirrored pleats on either side until the sizes of the skirt and the waistband match. The pockets are also pinned in place. The skirt is sewn to the outer side of the waistband. The skirt's seam allowance is trimmed to reduce bulk. To attach the inner side of the waistband, the 2 pieces are pinned right sides together. The pieces are sewn with 5/8 of an inch of seam allowance. The waistband's seam allowance is also trimmed and the curved edges are clipped to reduce bulk. The waistband is turned, pinned to the inside of the skirt and sewn with a whip stitch. I hate sewing closures, so I didn't film this, but here are the hooks and eyes. If you've been here before, you know the drill. I'm building a temporary dress form to even out the hem of the skirt. I'm using this cardboard tube to measure the same distance from the floor and pin the hem of the skirt all around. The hem is then basted and the leftover fabric inside is trimmed so that only 1 inch remains. Finally, the hem is finished with a whip stitch. Good evening, friends of the internets. Yes, I'm not wearing my skirt because 1. It was 22 degrees outside today, so it's still way too warm and I don't want to die. And 2nd, I'm going to a Halloween party and my time is limited. I don't have much to say. I'm so happy with it. And together with my cloak, they're my 2 favorite garments of everything I've made so far. Once it gets cold, I'm going to wear it all the time because it's like wearing a blanket. It's so nice! As always, you can go to my website to see some high quality pictures of me wearing the skirt while pumpkin picking, which is always fun. The link to my website is down below. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. I love reading comments. So yeah, this is it for this video. I hope to continue with this series soon, but work has been quite busy lately, so my time for sewing is a little bit limited. I will do my best. If you would like to join me with more shenanigans in the future, sewing or otherwise, go ahead and subscribe in the link button thing below the video. And I will see you in the next one. Bye! Also, am I the only one that is crazy excited about the new Wednesday Addams show on Netflix? I'm obsessed. If you are super excited as well, let me know down below because I want to know. I want to know. Please tell me I'm not the only one. Please tell me I'm not the only crazy one. Okay, I'm going now. Bye.